Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pray First. It is Thursday morning. I know you're used to seeing Pastor Doug here, used to seeing me on Friday, but Pastor Doug had a commitment that came up this morning, so we ended up switching. At least I think we switched. So he may be on tomorrow, or you might get me twice in a row. I'm not sure, but welcome to Pray First. This is a conversation that we have every weekday morning at 7 a.m. And this is where we decide to give God our first thing that we do is that we're praying, we're reading the word, we're fellowshipping with each other, we're diving deeper into what he's trying to tell us right now. So good morning, Sean. Good morning, Raymond. Hey, Barbie. Hey, Daryl. How are you doing? Good morning, Sarah. Hey, Donna Baker. Thank you for doing the hearts and likes on the side, because remember, we always have someone every day that is new that's coming in here. Good morning, Neil. Good morning, Tasha. Tasha, did you enjoy Florida? I cannot wait. I get to go soon. Woo. Hey, Jennifer Potts. How are you doing? Hey, Casey Hedges. Oh my goodness, these are coming up so quick. So if I don't say hi to you, ooh, Stacy Matlock, it was so good to see you this weekend. Hi, Lana. How are you doing? So, we are in the middle of the Bible Project, and we are also in the middle of the series that Doug has been doing as far as with the whole living life. I am loving the series. I love going back to the beginning. Every time when he's talking, he keeps saying, we're going back to the beginning. And going back to the beginning, going to where it started, rebuilding our foundations so we can make sure that we're it's the structure that matters. Hey, Nita K. And hey, Barbie, I know, you know what? In the Mid-South, guys, we are having rain. We are right around the freezing temperature. So I know, Barbie, you're more north of us. So please stay safe if you are nice and slippery out there. I don't want you driving and crashing. It's terrible out there right now. Hey, Randall. Hey, Brenda Smith. Hey, Rebecca. So, anyways, I was losing my train of thought because I get so distracted by the sparkle when I see all of your names come up. So, anyways, it has been so eye-opening for me as we're discovering life and seeing the difference when we're eating from the tree of life and I'm losing my voice. I'm so sorry. So, if you have not been watching Pray First, when Pastor Doug has been going deeper into what he's teaching on Sunday mornings, I encourage you to do so. I'm going to get closer because I think I'm losing my voice. You may not be hearing me. Also, it is always on our on his YouTube channel. So if you need to, you can switch over to YouTube and you can catch them all easy. Because I know sometimes with the Pray First Pastor Doug page, even though you can sort it by videos, it may be easier to go to YouTube. Either way, share them out with your friends, making sure that they hear his sound teaching that he's doing. This weekend, I've gotten a glimpse of what he's teaching this weekend. And I always say you do not want to miss. You do not want to miss this weekend. Everything is kind of building on each other, and God is teaching and telling him so many things that he's sharing with us. And I love that we have a bold pastor who's willing to do that, who's willing to say, hey, this is what the word says, and encourage us to be disciples. So, yeah. Hey, did I miss Courtney on there? I say hi. I see Tasha saying love being on the States this journey. Courtney, are you heading back to the States? I missed your last post, so I don't know when you're actually coming back. And Barbie, I am so glad that you're working remote so you don't have to deal with the craziness that is out there. All right. Good morning, Chip Myers. How are you guys doing? Hashtag live, hashtag share. Let's get this out. I do want to get into reading more of the message this morning because I get to get into Samsung, and that's exciting because if you read Samsung in the message version, it's different. It is different. So, anyways, let's go ahead and dive into that, and that way when Pastor Doug picks up either tomorrow or he can go into further what he's been discussing yesterday. All right, chapter 10. Tola, son of Pua, the son of Dodo, was next after Abimelech. He rose to the occasion to save Israel. He was a man of Issachar. He lived at Shamir in the hill country of Ephraim. He judged Israel for 23 years and then died and was buried at Shamir. After him, Jair the Gileadite stepped into leadership. He judged Israel for 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkeys and had 30 towns in Gilead. The towns are still called Jair's villages. Jair died and was buried in Kamon. And then the people of Israel went back to doing evil in God's sight. These people. They worshiped the Baal gods and Ashtoreth goddesses, gods of Aram, Sidon, and Moab, gods of the Ammonites and the Philistines. They just walked off and left God. Quit worshiping him. And God exploded in hot anger at Israel and sold them off to the Philistines and Ammonites, who, beginning that year, bullied and battered the people of Israel mercilessly. For 18 years they had them under their thumb, all the people of Israel who lived east of the Jordan, the Amorite country of Gilead. Then the Ammonites crossed the Jordan to go to war against Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. Israel was in a bad way. The people of Israel cried out to God for help. We've sinned against you. We've left our God and worshiped the Baal gods. God answered the people of Israel. When the Egyptians, Amorites, Ammonites, Philistines, Sidonians, even Amalek and Midian oppressed you and you cried out to me for help, I saved you from them. And now you've gone and betrayed me, worshiping other gods. I'm not saving you anymore. Go ahead, cry out for help to the gods you've chosen. Let them get you out of the mess you're in. Oh my goodness. That verse is so powerful because, we think to ourselves, we're not worshiping other gods, but we are. We are if we're not putting God first. Like I said, I think I've shared before, when my kids were little and before I matured more in my walk, one of the things that I always felt is that I was making my kids my gods. What I mean is I put them above everything else. I love them so much. I love them too much. And that's not a good place to be. First with our spirits, we must love God. He's got to come first in everything that we do. The people of Israel said to God, we've sinned. Do to us whatever you think best, but please get us out of this. Then they cleaned house of the foreign gods and worshipped only God, and God took Israel's trouble to heart. The Ammonites prepared for war, setting camp in Gilead. The people of Israel set their rival camp in Mizpah. The leaders in Gilead said, who will stand up for us against the Ammonites? We'll make him head over everyone in Gilead. So Jephthah, the Gileadite, was one tough warrior. He was the son of a prostitute, for Gilead was his father. Meanwhile, Gilead's legal wife had given him other sons, and when they grew up, his wife's son threw Jephthah out. They told him, you're not getting any of our family inheritance. You're the son of another woman. So Jephthah fled from his brothers and went to live in the land of Tob. Some riffraff joined him and went around with him. Some time passed, and then the Ammonites started fighting Israel. With the Ammonites at war with them, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. They said to Jephthah, come, be our general, and we'll fight the Ammonites. But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, but you hate me. You kicked me out of my family's house. So why are you coming to me now? Because you are in trouble, right? The elders of Gilead replied, that is it exactly. We've come to you to go with us and fight the Ammonites. You'll be the head of us all the Gileadites. Jephthah addressed the elders of Gilead. So if you bring me back home to fight the Ammonites and God gives them to me, I'll be your head. Is that right? They said, God is witness between us. Whatever you say, we'll do. Jephthah went along with the elders of Gilead. The people made him their top man in general, and Jephthah repeated what he had said before God at Mizpah. Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites with a message. What's going on here that you have come into my country picking a fight? The king of the Ammonites told Jephthah's messengers, because Israel took my land when they came up out of Egypt, from the Arnon all the way back to Jabbok and to the Jordan. Give it back peacefully, and I'll go. Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites with a message. Jephthah's word. Israel took no Moabite land and no Ammonite land when they came up from Egypt. Israel went through the desert as far as the Red Sea, arriving at Kadesh. There, Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, let us pass through your land, please. But the king of Edom wouldn't let them. Israel also requested permission from the king of Moab, but he wouldn't let them cross either. They were stopped in their tracks on Kadesh. So they traveled across the desert and circled around the lands of Edom and Moab. They came out east of the land of Moab and set camp on the other side of the side of the Arnon. They didn't set foot in Moabite territory, for Arnon was the Moabite border. Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, at Heshbon, the capital. Israel asked, let us pass, please, through your land on the way to our country. But Sihon didn't trust Israel to cut across his land, so he got his entire army together, set up camp at Jahaz, and fought Israel. But God, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his troops to Israel. Israel defeated them. Israel took all the Amorite land, all Amorite land from Arnon to the Jabbok, and from the desert to Jordan. It was God, the God of Israel, who pushed out the Amorites in favor of Israel. So who do you think you are trying to take it over? Ooh, good history lesson. Why don't you just be satisfied with what your God Chemosh gives you, and we'll settle for what our God gives us? Do you think what you're going to come up better than Balak son of Zippor, the king of Moab? Did he get anywhere in opposing Israel? Did he risk war? All this time, it's been 300 years now, that Israel has lived in Heshbon and its villages, in Aroer and its villages, and in all the towns along the Arnon. Why didn't you try to snatch them away then? No, I haven't wronged you, but this is an evil thing that you're doing to me by starting a fight. Today, God the judge will decide between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon. But the king of Ammonites refused to listen to the word that Jephthah had sent him. God's spirit came upon Jephthah. He went across Gilead and Manasseh, went through Mizpah of Gilead, and from there approached the Ammonites. Jephthah made a vow before God. If you give me a clear victory over the Ammonites, then I'll give to God whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in one piece from among the Ammonites. I'll offer it up in a sacrificial burnt offering. Then Jephthah went off to fight the Ammonites, and God gave them all to him. He beat them soundly, all the way from Aroer to the area around Minnith, as far as Abel-Keram, 20 cities. A massacre. Ammonites brought to their knees by the people of Israel. Jephthah came home to Mizpah. His daughter ran from the house to welcome him home, dancing tambourines. She was his only child. He had no son or daughter except her. When he realized who it was, he ripped his clothes, saying, "Ah, dearest daughter, I'm dirt, I'm despicable. My heart is torn to shreds. I made a vow to God, and I can't take it back." She said, "Dear father, if you made a vow to God, do to me what you vowed. God did his part and saved you from the Ammonite enemies." And then she said to her father, "But let this one thing be done for me. Give me 2 months to wander through the hills and lament my virginity, since I will never marry, I and my dear friends." "Oh yes, go," he said. He sent her off for 2 months. She and her dear girlfriends went among the hills, lamenting that she would never marry. At the end of the 2 months, she came back to her father. He fulfilled the vow with her that he had made. She had never slept with a man. It had become a custom in Israel that for 4 days every year, the young women of Israel went out to mourn for the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. You can't make these kind of stories up. This is crazy. And I like the way it reads in the Message version. Chapter 12. The men of Ephraim mustered their troops, crossed to Ephraim, and said to Jephthah, "Why did you go out to fight the Ammonites without letting us go with you? We're going to burn your house down on you." But Jephthah said, "I and my people had our hands full, negotiating with the Ammonites, and I did call to you for help, but you ignored me. When I saw that you weren't coming, I took my life in my hands and confronted the Ammonites myself, and God gave them to me. So why did you show up here today? Are you spoiling for a fight with me?" So Jephthah got his Gilead troops together and fought Ephraim. And the men of Gilead hit them hard because they were saying, "Gileadites are nothing but half-breeds and rejects from Ephraim and Manasseh." Gilead captured the fords of the Jordan at the crossing to Ephraim. If an Ephraimite fugitive said, "Let me cross," the men of Gilead would say, "Are you an Ephraimite?" And he would say, "No." And they would say Shibboleth. But he would always say Sibboleth. He couldn't say it right. Then they would grab him and kill him there at the fords of the Jordan. 42 Ephraimite divisions were killed on that occasion. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in the city, Mizpah of Gilead. After him, Isban of Bethlehem judged Israel. He had 30 sons and $30. Holy cow. Can you imagine if he had 60 kids? My 3 drive me nuts. He gave his daughters in marriage outside his clan and brought in $30 in law from the outside for his sons. He judged Israel for 7 years, and Ibzan died and was buried in Bethlehem. After him, Eli the Zebulunite judged Israel. He judged Israel 10 years. Eli the Zebulunite died and was buried in Ajalon in the land of Zebulun. After him, Abdon son of Hillel the Parathonite judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys. He judged Israel 8 years. Abdon son of Hillel the Parathonite died and was buried at Parathonite in the land of Ephraim in the Amalekite hill country. Samson, here's a Bible person that we're very familiar with. Let's listen to it message style. "And then the people of Israel were back at it again, doing what was evil in God's sight. God put them under the domination of the Philistines for 40 years. At that time there was a man named Manoah from Zorah, from the tribe of Dan. His wife was barren and childless. The angel of God appeared to her and told her, 'I know that you're barren and childless, but you're going to become pregnant and bear a son. But take much care. Drink no wine or beer, eat nothing ritually unclean. You are, in fact, pregnant right now, carrying a son. No razor will touch his head. The boy will be God's Nazarite from the moment of his birth. He will launch the deliverance from Philistine oppression.' The woman said to her husband and said, A man of God came to me. He looked like the angel of God, terror-laced with glory. I didn't ask him where he's from, and he didn't tell me his name, but he told me that you're pregnant. You're going to give birth to a son. Don't drink any wine or beer and eat nothing ritually unclean. The boy will be God's Nazarite from the moment of birth to the day of his death. Manoah prayed to God, Master, let the man of God you sent come to us again and teach us how to raise this boy to be born. God listened to Manoah. God's angel came again to the woman. She was sitting in the field. Her husband Manoah wasn't there with her. She jumped to her feet and ran and told her husband, He's back, the man who came to me that day. So Manoah got up and followed his wife, came to the man. He said to him, Are you the man who spoke with my wife? He said, I am. Manoah said, So, when what you say comes true, what do you have to tell us about this boy and his work? The angel of God said to Manoah, Keep in mind everything I told the woman. Eat nothing that comes from the vine. Drink no wine or beer. Eat no ritually unclean foods. She's to observe everything I commanded her. Manoah said to the angel of God, Please stay with us a little longer. We'll prepare a meal for you, a young goat. God's angel said to Manoah, Even if I stay, I won't eat your food. But if you want to prepare a whole burnt offering for God, go ahead and offer it. Manoah had no idea that he was talking to the angel of God. Then Manoah asked the angel of God, What's your name? When your words come true, we'd like to honor you. The angel of God said, What's this? You asked for my name? You wouldn't understand. It's sheer wonder. So Manoah took the kid and the grain offering and sacrificed them on a rock altar to God, who works wonders. As the flames leapt up from the altar to heaven, God's angel also ascended in the altar flames. When Manoah saw and his wife saw this, they fell face down to the ground. Manoah and his wife never saw the angel of God again. Only then did Manoah realize that this was God's angel. He said to his wife, We're as good as dead. We've looked on to God. But his wife said, If God were planning to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our whole burnt offering and grain offering, or revealed all these things to us, giving us this birth announcement. The woman gave birth to a son, and they named him Samson. The boy grew, and God blessed him. The Spirit of God began working in him while we staying at a Danite camp between Zorah and Ethnaol. We're going to get through chapter 14, my friends. Samson went down to Timnah. There in Timnah, a woman caught his eye, a Philistine girl. He came back and he told his father and mother, I saw a woman in Timnah, the Philistine girl. Get her for me as a wife. But his parents said to him, Isn't there a woman among the girls in the neighborhood of our people? Do you have to go get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me. She's the one I want. She's the right one. Wow, this totally ties into what Pastor Doug is talking about, isn't it, right now, as far as when we're marrying, how it's important that we're not just equally yoked, but we're married to him first. Oh, goodness. I love timings of stuff. Anyways, verse 4. His father and mother had no idea that God was behind this, that he was arranging an opportunity against the Philistine. At the time, the Philistines lorded it over Israel. Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother. When he got to the vineyards of Timnah, a young lion came out at him roaring. The Spirit of God came on him powerfully and ripped it open barehanded, like tearing a young goat. But he didn't tell his parents what he had done. Then he went on down and spoke to the woman. In Samson's eyes, she was the one. Some days later, when he came back to get her, he made a little detour to look at what was left of the lion. And there, a wonder, a swarm of bees in the lion's carcass, and honey. He scooped it up in his hands and kept going, eating as he went. He rejoined his father and mother and gave some to them, and they ate. But he didn't tell them that he had scooped out the honey from the lion's carcass. That's gross. His father went on down to make arrangements with a woman where Samson prepared a feast there. That's what the young man did in those days. Because the people were wary of him, they arranged for 30 friends to mingle with them. Samson said to them, Let me put a riddle to you. If you figure it out during the 7 days of the feast, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of fine clothing. But if you can't figure it out, then you'll give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of fine clothing. They said, Put in your riddle. Let's hear it. So he said, From the eater came something to eat. From the strong came something sweet. They couldn't figure it out. After 3 days, they were still stumped. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's bride, Worm the ants out of your husband will burn you and your husband's household. Have you invited us here to bankrupt us? Samson's bride turned on the tear, saying to him, You hate me. You don't love me. You've told a riddle to my people, but you won't even tell me the answer. He said, I haven't told my own parents. Why would I tell you? But she turned on the tears all the 7th day of the feast. On the 7th day, worn out by her nagging, he told her. Then she went and told it to her people. The men of the town came to him on the 7th day, just before sunset, and said, What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? And Samson said, If you haven't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have found out my riddle. Woo! Then the Spirit of God came powerfully on him. He went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of their men, stripping them and gave their clothing to those who had solved the riddle. Stalking out, smoking with anger, he went home to his father's house. Samson's bride became the wife of the best man at his wedding. Goodness gracious, that's some powerful words there that in this story. Again, reading it from the Message version gives you a different perspective, makes things, I like it because it's in the layman's terms that we have now. All right, friends, I'm going to go ahead and stop there so Pastor Brandy can pick up in Judges 15 as we continue through the Bible Project, reading through the Message version. Can't believe how much we've already gotten through. The Old Testament is a fascinating, it tells us so much about the character of God. That's why I love the Old Testament. Time and time again, we mess up. He sees our hearts, he forgives us, and then it's like this cycle continues, and sacrifice and all this until we have Jesus. I love being able to take everything through the cross. That just changes everything. So, my friends, I'm going to let you guys go on this rainy Thursday. I need you guys all to stay safe. If you're near Crosspoint, if you can get into Crosspoint, you do not want to miss coming into Crosspoint this weekend. Of course, I'll also post it out here on the Pastor Doug page, the message itself from our app as soon as it gets cut and ready to go. So, Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for all my friends. Thank you for bringing them here to me this rainy Thursday morning. Goodness, my brain. Lord, thank you for your word. Thank you for directing us and showing us where to go, teaching us lessons throughout, Lord. There's so many nuggets in here that we just cannot wait to dive into. Lord, no Spirit, but your Holy Spirit, have your way with my friends. Keep them safe, Lord. Keep them warm. In your precious name we pray. Amen. All right, my friends, have a fantastic, wonderful day. Stay warm, do your thing, and we will see you again soon. Bye, everyone. Hey, Kat, I bet Texas is warmer than here. Hey, Corrine, how are you guys doing? All right, Nita K, you have a great, great day. Talk to you guys later. Bye.